Hello everybody, hope we're all well. Been a long time, and time flies. Tend to get busy doing things, and before you know it, months have slipped away. Right, so last year we bought this mill and spent quite a few thousand on it, with all the bits and pieces to make these aluminium cock and handles to replace these crappy plastic things. But these were taken far too long to mill on there for what I could ever charge for them. So as the year went on, I kept thinking I really need to get into casting. So I bought a furnace and made up loads of flasks and stuff. And what do you say, monkey? Yeah. So now we are making decent cast handles. And damper mounts. And all the other bits and pieces. Right, I'll tell you what. Oh, yeah, the miller's been coming in handy. I've just been making up all these the last week or so. Lots of tactical bolts and loads of the adapter ones for the rev. I have to get them listed soon. Right, let's just pop this on here. Clear all these out the way. God, there's some weight in them. Yes, all right, monkey. You're not helping, mate. Right. So, bought the furnace and casting sand and started doing lots of research on cast aluminium, and that these are all early failed attempts. Lots and lots of them. So played around with heat and different alloys and all sorts of stuff, and then I worked out, instead of pouring them that way, if I poured them that way, they came out perfect. I will talk about that one in a little while. This one, I tied a rope around 50 kilo of weights and picked that up with it. And that's still in one piece. Bearing in mind the standard rev, you're only going to be pulling about 43 pound, 44 pound on average. And these plastic ones can't even handle that. So I've made up a handle to hold this, to replicate 3 fingers, and I'm gonna see how much weight I can lift with that and what it does, but I will video that. But yeah, I think you could hang yourself off a building with that. Yeah, one thing I did try was making a cast out of graphite. But I just couldn't never get it to work. It wouldn't never fill in all the bits. And that would have been the front roller for the Rev. So there's my box of parts that formers for the mould. Once you put the time and effort into making them with the taper and everything, it makes making the cast a lot easier. But on my Rev, because it's got the height extension on the barrel, because mine shoot 3 fletch, I originally had a couple of spacers on top of the original damper, and to set that up higher. So I thought while I was at it, I'd cut the top off, drilled 2 holes in, bolted it, and then filled it in with chemical metal, and that's my extended version to get the height up. Because as you can see, a standard one just ain't gonna do it. And then, because a lot of people can't drill and thread their dampers to fit these, I haven't got any made up at the moment. I've got to do a load tonight. I took hose off and then built that up and flattened it down. Because what name makes these? So then I just have to drill them, thread them, and then you can now get the whole thing on eBay, which seems to be very slow at the moment. And then we've got my former for the Supersonic and the Draken one. And I'm now doing a mid one for the Draken, which is flat, because the limbs are longer on the Draken, so it's further up the barrel. And then this one is for standard Supersonic. These ones are for Errol's bow, because the on a Supersonic, that was so far forward, it didn't really seem worth having it there, so that one now pushes the roller further back up, but I'll cover that shortly. as I now get round to getting these bows done. Yes, that's that. And I've also made another one pattern now to cast the EK archery ones, the Hex 400 and whatnot. And then the handles, I had to really put some time into sanding these and getting them so that the casts would come out nice. Because everything's got to be tapered, or when you take your part out, it pulls all the sand out with it. So the amount of time I had to put into these three to make these, it took a lot of messing about, but it was funny, as well it weren't funny on the day, but just as I was then starting to get into all that casting, I got a Who's bow back to put my limbs on, like I did the other two revs. And on the third shot, that happened. Oops. Which did it in the exact same place as what mine did. Now, I was gonna cut it and do what I did to mine, make a steel bottom for it, and then bolt the top parts of the riser on like I did mine. But then, if I'd have done that, I would have destroyed this riser completely. You can see how much that flexed, look, by the where it took the paint off the body. So what I'm going to do is now take this off and then glue this back together, and then I'm going to add some filler and build it up and make it beefier, and use this as a template to cast them. You can see how poor quality that is, look how dull it is, brittle. Well, it's hit and miss with these parts, because like two tacticals I put these limbs on and they survived alright for hundreds of shots when I tested them, and yet this one, third shot and that happened. Quite did have some power though. Didn't adjust. But yeah, so I didn't want to end up with another riser looking like this, and then but anyway, for now I'm gonna call that it, and later on tonight, when the electric's cheaper, I'll make some parts. And now I've got this bit done, I've got Phil's Supersonic Tactical to finish, and I've got Errol's standard Supersonic there to finish. So next mission now is take this off and get that fixed together so I can get a casting made up. Bob's your uncle. It's been a few days now since I did the first part of this video. I showed his riser was broken, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, it depends which way you look at it. I've been working on it pretty much every day and glued it back together, and then been filling the bottom with chemical metal and making it more solid, bigger, stronger. And got to the point last night, late, or early this morning, where I wanted to get the tops milled flat, and then I'm near enough ready to go into casting then. But I put it in, put it on the body and put it in here, and there's like 1.5 millimeters difference, this side lower. So I built up on top of here with chemical metal, and then put it in the air and cover, had a shower and went to bed. But then when I got up today and got it back down and put it in here, I noticed that we're a lot lower on this side than we are on this side. Look, the bottom of that is almost level with the top of the vise. So I measured it, and we're like 63.5 mil on this side and 65 on this side. So I'm glad I didn't do what I was going to do last night and mill 1.5 mil off this side, because then these would have been different thicknesses. So if I can see it here, but the bottom of the inside bottom of the riser isn't level. So I was wondering if it was, because I've done a lot of work on the body as well. I've sanded it all down, and I've filled back in there where I milled it out to get the string off the barrel. Filled that up with chemical metal, milled it down, and I've made one final like upgrade overhaul to these revs now. I've milled a slot in there above where the riser bolts go and put a 2.5 mil thick piece of steel in there. So I've got some steel to put the bolts in there, save them pulling that out there. But yeah, I've where you had those two high spots and the centre was high, I've filled it all out with chemical metal now, and I just had a few little holes and imperfections last night to skim over. I've got to give that a final sand and that'll be perfect. I've also took out all the high marks in the cast and got it all nice and uniform. See where all the high and low spots are. Loads of them. There was loads inside here. I took all them out with a Dremel with a little flat boil. So they're all nice and uniform now. So what I'm going to do now is take the riser off that body and swap this little vise for this big one, and then I can lay the bottom of these flat on the vise, and then I'm going to mill the bottom of the riser out level, and then mill the tops of these flat, because these, I've never come across one of these yet that don't do that when you lay it flat. When I make my new one, cast it, I want that to sit perfectly flat, so when I drill these holes, the limbs will sit level rather than the left being cocked down and the right cocked up. So that's my next little step now, is to get the vices swapped, and then I'll get back onto it. I swapped the vices over and laid the riser on the jaws, and that didn't wobble on the bottoms on the jaws, so that was good. At least I know the bottoms of them are level, so I got a datum to go to get the bottom of this flat. And see, after one little pass, that's not even at all. So I'm going to come down about 0.1 mil, because I haven't got a huge amount holding this in there, only the 5 mil pins that hold the limbs in. So we are 0, we come down not 0.1. There we go, 0.1 millimeter. That's better. At least that's flat now. Right, come back to this side. Oh, that looks much better. At least that's flat now, both sides. Right, so now I take that out of there, bolt it back to the body, get the body back in upside down, and have another measure up, see where we are. I was just going to do one video, but time I add them all together, that'd be well over an hour long, time I got to this stage and casting them and stuff. So I'm gonna do this as the first part, and then do a part 2, and then part 3 will be putting the bow back together, fitting the new riser, which is all made now and painted and ready to go, but I'm not going to show that yet, so stay tuned, watch this space.